there ain't no stopping us. Fly without boarding pass. Couldn't catch me, I'll be moving fast. Call me a shooting
At least 910 people have died after contracting the Wuhan coronavirus, surpassing the number of those killed during the 20,022,003 SARS epidemic.
who's in charge. Call me a shooting star.
A 60-year-old U.S. citizen in China is the first American to die from the coronavirus outbreak, which has now killed 814 people, mostly in China.
Didn't even get to cross.
A U.S. State Department spokesperson confirmed the time that the citizen died Thursday at Jinshan Hospital in Wuhan, China, the epicenter of the outbreak. Japanese officials also reported the country's first death from the respiratory illness, a Japanese citizen in his 60s who died in Wuhan, according to Japan Times. The rate of infections does not seem to be accelerating, and seems to be stabilizing in Hubei, the province worst affected by the outbreak, Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, the Director General of the war.
I be big in the game like she went and got them breast implants. I said I'm moving too fast, didn't even get to glance.
Tedros said that the efforts to contain the virus appear to be paying off, because the spread of the virus to the rest of the world and to other parts of China has been slow.
Because you want, shining like it's neon, rock like kings of Leon. Shooting stars across the
However, he warned that epidemics may speed up again after stabilizing for a few days.
infiltration with my strategy. When I turn up, then I just have to leave.
So while it is still slow, there is a window of opportunity that we should use to the maximum, to have a better outcome, Tedros said.
Infiltration with my strategy. When I turn up, then I just have to leave.
The virus has also killed one person in the Philippines, and another in Hong Kong.
Yeah, shooting, shooting. Yeah, shooting, shooting.
The SARS epidemic resulted in 774 deaths by the time the transmission chain ended in July 2003, according to the World Health Organization.
Didn't even get to
As Centers for Disease Prevention and Control confirmed. The U.S. State Department announced that they are offering $100 million to help China and other countries dealing with the virus. In Japan, officials said Sunday that a total of 70 cases of the virus had been found on a cruise ship that's been quarantined in Yokohama Harbor. The ship was quarantined after the company learned that a passenger from Hong Kong who had been diagnosed with the coronavirus sailed on the ship, the Diamond Princess, last month. Dr. Mike Ryan, Executive Director of WHO's Health Emergencies Program, acknowledged the stressful situation for those on board the ship at WHO's press conference on Friday. At the moment, every time there's a new case, the quarantine extends 14 days, so we need to find a way to break that vicious cycle and find a way of organizing the patients on board in a way that we said on Saturday that the WHO is having discussions with authorities about ways to section off people in different groups to allow some groups to gradually start leaving. Japan and Singapore have reported the most patients outside of China, with at least 95 and 43 respectively. So far, 99% of confirmed cases are in China and 80% of the cases in China are in Hubei province, the WHO stated on Wednesday. Excluding mainland China, there are at least 360 across 24 countries, according to Johns Hopkins University's virus tracker. On Friday morning, 27 passengers aboard a Royal Caribbean cruise ship were screened for possible coronavirus sickness when the ship was docked in Bayonne, N. No cases were confirmed from the screening. 72 countries are implementing travel restrictions through official reports, official statements and the media, according to the WHO. Earlier in the week, Li Wenliang, a Chinese doctor who tried to warn others about the coronavirus outbreak, died of the virus Thursday in Wuhan. He had been punished by police for making untrue comments and severely disturbing social order. The Wuhan Central Hospital reported Dr. Li's death on social media, saying that he was unfortunately infected during the fight against the pneumonia epidemic of the new coronavirus infection, the SARS. After initial reports of Li's death, WHO offered its condolences. "Very sorry to hear of the loss of any frontline worker who has attempted to care for patients," said Ryan. Meanwhile, the WHO has warned that the world is facing severe disruption in the market for personal protective equipment due to the coronavirus outbreak. Demand is up to 100 times higher than normal and prices are up to 20 times higher, WHO Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus said at a Friday press conference. Said there are depleted stockpiles of equipment like masks and respirators and a 4 to 6 month backlog of orders for necessary supplies. "We need to make sure we get it, supplies to the people who need it most and the places that need it most," General Ghebreyesus said. On Wednesday, authorities in Hong Kong announced that all arrivals from mainland China would be quarantined for 14 days starting Saturday, acknowledging that there is risk of an outbreak in the city. Chief Executive Carrie Lam once again stopped short of closing the border, despite demands from many Hong Kong residents, including thousands of medical workers who went on strike in an ad. State media said Thursday that the second hospital in Wuhan, the epicenter of the outbreak, officially opened on Thursday. A rush-built hospital with 1,000 beds was completed earlier in the week. Both hospitals were constructed in a matter of days to treat coronavirus patients, an attempt by authorities to contain the deadly outbreak. Experts are suggesting that the illness could be passed from mother to fetus as two newborn babies tested positive for the illness, according to Chinese state media. World Health Organization coordinates global response. The WHO said in a press conference on Saturday that it is stepping up efforts to battle misinformation by coordinating with search and social comm. agency has also announced plans to raise at least $675 million for a strategic plan to respond to the outbreak and a forum to convene global researchers to fast-track solutions. Part of that money, $60 million, is to fund WHO's operations, while the remainder is for countries that are especially at risk, said WHO Director General Tedros at a press conference on Wednesday. Our message to the international community is, invest today or pay more later, Tedros said. Tedros thanked the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation for already pledging up to $100 million and Japan for contributing $10 million. The US, the UK, the Netherlands, the Czech Republic have also donated. WHO is also working with local authorities in Singapore to look into an outbreak at a hotel. At least 3 Asian businessmen who attended a meeting of more than 100 people at the Grand Hyatt Singapore Hotel last month were infected with the virus, according to Reuters. Of the 109 participants, 94 were from abroad, Reuters reported. Tedros also downplayed criticism from John McKinsey, a member of WHO's Coronavirus Emergency Committee, who said that China's initial response to the outbreak was reprehensible, and that they didn't. American response: the State Department announced on Friday that they are sending medical supplies, including masks, gowns and respirators to China to assist with the virus. The United States is also prepared to spend up to $100 million in funds to help China and other countries impacted by the spread. A second wave of American evacuations from Wuhan took place Wednesday as a plane with 178 passengers landed at Travis Air Force Base in California, the U. Those on board are now subject to a 14-day federal quarantine and will stay at the Air Force Base temporarily. Those entering the U.S. within 12 days of having been in Hubei or the rest of mainland China will be directed to one of 11 U.S. airports for an additional health assessment, according to the CDC. They include Los Angeles International Airport, San Francisco International Airport, John F. Kennedy International Airport, Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport, Honolulu International Airport, Chicago's O'Hare International Airport, Seattle Tacoma International Airport, Washington. Americans traveling back to the U.S. from Hubei province 14 days before returning to the country will be subject to up to 14 days of a mandatory quarantine, Secretary of Health and Human Services Alex. Any American citizens who were in mainland China 14 days before returning to the U.S. will have to undergo a self-imposed quarantine for 14 days. International cases and response. At least 288 patients have tested positive for the illness across 24 countries, according to the WHO. A 44-year-old man died in the Philippines last week, the country's Department of Health confirmed, marking the first person to succumb to the virus outside of China. Man, a resident of Wuhan, China, had arrived in the Philippines on January 21 with a 38-year-old woman, who was also infected. A 39-year-old man in Hong Kong died on Tuesday, making him the second death outside of mainland China. The patient reportedly had an underlying illness. There are 36 confirmed cases of the coronavirus in Hong Kong, which was hard hit by the 2002 to 2003 outbreak of severe acute respiratory syndrome SARS. More than one-third of the nearly 800 deaths from SARS worldwide were in Hong Kong, and the semi-autonomous Chinese territory had more than 1,700 of the 8,000 confirmed cases of the virus. Hong Kong's neighbor, the gambling hub of Macau, confirmed its 10th case of the virus Tuesday. Macau announced the same day that it would be shutting its casinos for 2 weeks. The city's casinos are overwhelmingly reliant on mainland Chinese tourists. There are also at least 32 in Thailand and 25 in South Korea, according to Johns Hopkins University's virus tracker. Governments and health officials in Nepal, Canada, Cambodia, Vietnam, Malaysia, Sri Lanka, UAE, France, the UK, Italy, Russia, Sweden, Spain and Germany have also reported patients testing positive for the virus. Several countries have tightened their borders to restrict the flow of mainland Chinese visitors. "72 countries are implementing travel restrictions through official reports, official statements and the media, according to the WHO. In Hong Kong, the government has closed all but 2 entry points, leaving a cross-border bridge and a port in the northwestern part of the territory open. Visitors can still fly to Hong Kong, though flights between mainland China and Hong Kong have been kept by half. All travelers coming from China will be quarantined for 14 days starting February 8. Singapore has said it is banning visitors with recent travel history to mainland China and has also banned the entry and transfer of travelers holding passports issued by China's Hubei province. Russian Prime Minister Mikhail Mishustin said Thursday that Russia would be closing its land border with China from Friday at least until March 1, the Associated Press reported. Multiple countries are also warning against unnecessary travel to China, and many have already started evacuating their citizens from Wuhan. Evacuees from Spain, Japan, the US and Europe are among those who have been flown out of Wuhan on government planes. China travel restricted. Chinese officials have shut down travel in and out of Wuhan, home to 11 million people, and enacted similar, strict transportation restrictions in a number of other cities. Wuhan has suspended immigration administration services, local authorities said Monday, according to Chinese state media. China's Hubei province has also suspended services to apply for passports and exit entry permits. Apple said last week that it would close stores, corporate offices and contact centers in China out of an abundance of caution, the New York Times reported. Royal Caribbean also announced restrictions, including the cancellation of 8 cruises out of China due to the outbreak, according to the AP. The cruise line announced Monday that it would also prohibit any guest or crew member, regardless of nationality, to board a ship if they traveled through mainland China or Hong Kong less than 15 days. Japanese officials said that Japan would ban foreign nationals who have been through Hubei province within 2 weeks before their arrival. Those carrying Chinese passports issued in Hubei are also banned from entering the country, although special exceptions may be made, government officials said, according to Japan Times. Australia said it would ban travelers who have visited or transited through mainland China from Saturday onwards for the next 2 weeks. The restrictions will not apply to Australian citizens, permanent residents and members of their immediate family, although these groups will be asked to isolate themselves for 2 weeks from 1th. Additionally, Singapore has banned all travelers arriving from mainland China who had been there in the past 14 days from entry and transit by Sunday morning. The U.S. Federal Aviation Administration says that Vietnam has suspended almost all flights from and to mainland China, Hong Kong and Macau until May 1, according to the New York Times. As the deadly virus spreads, a growing number of airlines including British Airways, Air France, Delta and Lufthansa are suspending all flights to China. Many have cut down the number of flights, and some have stopped flying to major cities. According to Chinese state media, CDC confirms second human-to-human transmission in the U.S. The first American patient diagnosed with the new coronavirus was also discharged from hospital. A patient in California, who had not recently traveled to China, tested positive for the virus. The patient is married to a person who had previously traveled to China and tested positive for the respiratory illness, according to the California Department of Public Health. On Monday, hospital officials at the Providence Regional Medical Center in Everett, Washington, said the 35-year-old man who was the first to test positive for the new coronavirus in the U.S. S has left the facility, the Associated Press reported. The unidentified man is recovering and looking forward to life returning to normal, he told the AP. The CDC has now confirmed at least 12 cases of the coronavirus infection in the U.S. across Wisconsin, Arizona, Massachusetts, California, Washington State and Illinois. Wednesday, Wisconsin's Department of Health Services reported a confirmed case of the virus in an adult with a history of travel to Beijing. The individual is isolated at home and is doing well, the agency said. Dr. Nancy Messonnier, director of the National Center for Immunization and Respiratory Diseases, maintained that the risk to the American public continued to be low, but that the CDC expects to find a S. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration issued an emergency use authorization for the first 2019 new coronavirus diagnostic Tuesday, before which the test had been limited to being used at CDC's labo. Authorization now allows the test to be used at any CDC-qualified lab in the U.S. The status of another 100 cases is currently pending. Of those, 225 had so far tested negative for the disease.